Hi, Ajahn. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Hello.
Hi. I think my question is about sometimes maybe because I'm very deluded, sometimes I feel that life is good and there's not too much suffering. And then at that time I will feel like not very motivated to practice. Is there any advice to force myself to practice when life very little feels like it has very little suffering? Thank you.
That's a very good point, and quite a few people speak like you, I think. Um, on the one hand, you could say you're somebody with merit, good karma, because you don't have a lot of suffering pressuring you at the moment. So that's your good fortune, your good karma. Good for you. That is an achievement. It's something to be happy about. You have some contentment with your life. Maybe what you have to do is look a little bit more deeply, more closely at it and say, well, even though you've achieved this much happiness, contentment in your life, which is a good thing, how permanent is it? How reliable is it? You know, the Buddha reminding us every day we're getting older, conditions can change, the world around us can change, our health, our personal conditions can change. You try and look more deeply into that and see, well, what more can you do to develop your practice? How firm your mind is in its faith in Buddha Dhamma Sangha, in the practice of the precepts, practice of mindfulness, insight into the impermanent nature of this world, and so on. You know, question that, look more deeply. So, say you've achieved a certain level of happiness, that's good. If you can do some meditation every day and you can meditate for a certain period of time, whether it's short or long, you can sit for 15 minutes. Sometimes you should increase the amount of time you sit meditation, say. If you can sit 15 minutes, sit for 30 minutes. Or if you can sit for 30 minutes, try sitting for an hour. And during that hour or those 30 minutes, whatever the period of time, watch your mind. What comes up? How peaceful are you if you push yourself a little bit more? Or also you can look into your practice on the level of precepts. Say you try and keep the 5 precepts every day. That's great. That's really good. Can you keep the 8 precepts sometimes? Practice a bit more renunciation sometimes. Sometimes we have to learn how to push ourselves a bit more, you know, meditating more, listening to the Dhamma more, keeping precepts more. Can we do more for other people around us? Maybe a bit more dana, helping those in need. Just look around to see where you may extend yourself a bit more, because if we just sit back too content, take it too easy because we've achieved a certain level of happiness in our life, or we could get caught out later. And you have to ask yourself, am I indulging here? And later on, if conditions change, am I going to be caught out and find I'm, you know, feeling stressed? Or maybe one thing you might reflect on is, you know, when you reach the end of your life, you're going to feel you used your time, used your life as the best you could. Could you have done more? You obviously haven't reached the end of your life yet, I hope. So, you know, don't wait for that point. Now is the time to say, oh, what more can I do? See how you can push a bit further in your practice on every level, dana, sila, bhavana. You have to look for those opportunities and look for ways to integrate the Dhamma more into your life. See how you can raise your effort, perhaps. And be aware that you won't be here forever, so time is running out. So how can you use what time you have left to do more good for yourself and for others?
Sadhu Lumpo, there are a few questions in the chat box. The first one is, hi Lumpo, how to react if someone takes their frustration on us?
I guess depends on the situation. There's so many ways other people might take their frustration out on us. I mean, if it's something that's a physical threat, run away, get away from them as best you can, as quick as you can, maybe. Sometimes it's verbal, they're taking it, probably the more common one is people criticize us, insult us, blame us. Try to establish mindfulness. If you know the person, it's a situation you've encountered before, it's a person you know and you've encountered this problem before. Try to, when you're calm and you're on your own, maybe reflect on the whole thing, and so that you're prepared. You get to know, oh, this person, they're always taking out their frustration on me. So you're ready for when you meet them the next time, because it may be someone you can't avoid very easily. So prepare yourself. What qualities of mind do you need? What practices will you do when you meet with this person, or when you're in those situations? If there's somebody who's argumentative, perhaps just being a bit quieter to not provoke them and not get drawn into the arguments may help. Say, obviously being more mindful in those situations. If you can, cultivate kindness and compassion towards that person, at the very least mentally. So sometimes we do that on our own. There's someone at work or in our life who is taking out their suffering on us. So in our own meditation, in our own space, own time, we send our thoughts out, cultivate the thought of loving kindness, compassion, and send it out to them. Wish them to be free from suffering, wish them to improve, so that when we meet them next, we have that as our starting point. Of course, their frustrations, if they keep taking them out on us, well, they may wear away our goodwill. So that's where you need patience and mindfulness to try and not give in to your own anger when they're provoking or triggering you. So then also you have to reflect, how much can you cope with? And sometimes you have to get away from them, separate from them. For sure, you'll have to be patient with them. If there's any way you can actually develop skillful communication with them, of course, see if you can talk to them about the problem, and say they take out their frustration on you, they're unkind, unjust in their words. Maybe we can point that out to them in some way if it's possible. I know it's not always possible, but try and do that. Or if they're unjustly accusing us, blaming us, see if you can explain the truth to them. But always come from a place of goodwill for yourself. You've got to look after yourself, and then see if you can have goodwill for them. If there's any way to improve the situation, help them at all, have a look for that. As I said, each situation is different. So it's hard to generalize perhaps, but the generalization you could make is that anger is never reduced by more anger. It's never overcome by more anger. So if they're angry and they're taking it out on us, obviously that's not a good thing. But if we get angry and fight back, it's probably not going to be a good thing either. It's only going to get worse. So we have to try and find a more skillful solution, whether it's avoidance or skillful communication, patience, or sometimes you have to look for other people to help as well. There's a few different options you have, but always act from a place of non-ill will. As soon as they're frustrated and taking out on you, and you meet it with ill will, well, the whole thing will get worse, won't it? So you want to try and manage it and be patient with the situation so that you don't go into anger, and see if you need to get advice, help from other people. If you need to get away from the person, you just see what will work in that situation.
The next question is, We make merits in memory of departed ones, and we do transfer merits. What if the departed one is not a Buddhist faith but follows Christ? Will it be appropriate to do the transfer merits?
Of course, transferring merit is coming from a place of kindness and compassion. So you're honoring the memory of someone if they're a relative or friend. Doesn't matter if they're of a different religion or no religion. You can wish them well. And this is what dedicating merit is. You're doing an act of merit making dedicated to that person, because I assume you have some connection to them through family or friendship in one way or another. That's your good karma, and that's a skillful act by you. So hopefully it helps you. You might, feel good. Oh, we've done a good thing in the memory of this person. We are also dedicating the merit, hoping that they go on to a happy rebirth and they're free from suffering in their next life. You do all that. As far as them, whether they recognize what you're doing, which is part of the reasoning behind transference of merit, is that you're hoping that the connection, the mental connection with them, means that they can know about, witness the merit you're making and rejoice in it. Or we say give their anumodana, which will help them to be in a better state of mind. If they're in a state of suffering, we don't know, but if they were, maybe this can help them out of their state of suffering to a better place. So there's a lot of unknowns there, but what you do know is yourself, your own state of mind, your own action, your own dedication and merit. That you can be sure of. And if there's any way they can know what you're doing and they rejoice in it, well, that's good. And, they can be of any religion, doesn't matter, because this is just a natural law. It's coming from your good action and them opening up to it, rejoicing in it, feeling happier because of your good action, and that can be a cause for their own situation to improve. So it's a bit like, in the world you live in now, somebody is injured, they go to hospital, the doctor treats them, looks after them, gives them treatment in whatever the appropriate way is. The doctor does, it doesn't matter whether they're Christian, Buddhist, or no religion or any religion, the treatment will help that person, won't it? It's the same kind of idea. It's just a natural way of expressing kindness, but this is on the mental level as opposed to, well, you may do a physical action when you make merit, but mentally you're dedicating it to somebody. And this is just a law of nature, you could say. It's beyond the superficial labeling of religions and belief systems. It's just one mind opening up and with kindness, thinking of another mind, wherever that person may be.
Sadhu Lumpur, the next question is, when I am tired, I usually feel sleepy and unable to stay awake. Would it be better to just have a quick nap or still persist to keep meditating?
Try both. There's no one answer here. The Buddha said, if you're really exhausted, probably haven't slept enough. Well, yes, correct. Go and have a nap, have a sleep, and then meditate later once you've had a rest. That sometimes is the correct way of practice. But you have to learn to recognize the kind of sleepiness you're experiencing. There's one that is just coming from the exhaustion of the body. And there's one that's just coming from a lack of mindfulness. It can be a kind of a habitual turning off of the mind, but you're not actually that tired. And it can be overcome through improving mindfulness. And that's what you have to learn to recognize in your meditation, where it's just a hindrance of what we call sloth, torpor, dullness, sleepiness. And if it is that, it definitely can be overcome through effort. Sometimes you have to change your object. So if the object you're using, you're not rising up out of your drowsiness, your sleepiness, you may have to change. So you need something that brightens the mind. You'll notice when you're not caught into sleepiness, your mind has this brightness to it. Sleepiness comes with dullness. The Buddha compared it to being caught into a dungeon. Like in the old days, dark dungeon with a tiny little window, hardly any light in there. It's kind of dark and miserable in there. The sleepiness of the mind as a hindrance is a bit like that. So you need something to brighten your mind. So some people, they chant or recite Dhamma, and that gives a spark of, it's a bit like pushing a car when the battery is flat. The spark happens and then the motor starts ticking over and the car starts working, the engine starts working. Your mind can do that when you chant or recite Dhamma, or you put a candle in front of you and focus on the flame of the candle. Sometimes I've even used the perception of daylight. I just remember what it's like in the middle of the day, the light, of the sun. Even though my eyes are closed and I'm sleepy, I focus on that perception until the mind brightens up and wakes up. Some people do it with posture, and they sit up straight and they really put effort into their posture until they get beyond it. Another one, sometimes meditation teachers use. So if you have a teacher with you, so you're in a group and you're sleepy, as long as that teacher is loved and trusted, of course, they sometimes do things like they speak quite directly to the student. They say, "Hey, you, wake up." And they call your name, and it works. Sometimes you maybe suddenly you're alerted because someone has called your name, or Ajahn Chah might cough. You cough and the students all wake up. The most extreme one, I lived with one meditation master who was fed up with this little novice, poor little novice, 16-year-old novice, is always falling asleep in the morning meetings. We'd meet at 4 a.m. to meditate. He was fed up with the novice just falling asleep every morning. So he had an alarm clock very similar to this. And he threw it at the novice. But he was not aiming to hit the novice. He threw it right next to the novice. He was a good shot. And the whole clock exploded on the ground next to the novice. And the novice did wake up. It worked. Trouble was, he already had one alarm clock, and he completely destroyed the alarm clock doing this. And then the next morning, the novice was falling asleep again, and he had no alarm clock left because the monastery was very poor and there weren't any other alarm clocks. So it's not one I would recommend, because you'll run out of alarm clocks quickly. Whatever works.
Next question is, dear Ajahn, when one grasps it only doesn't create suffering, but also create karma that will drive further existence in samsara. Would you comment on this?
Yes, I agree with what you just said or wrote. It is a reinforcing thing, a repetitive thing, and the medical science, neuroscience, the observations of meditation masters, the Buddha and all the masters, is that these things repeat themselves, so they get stronger. Habits of mind become faster, more automatic. So if you get angry once and you hold on, identify with your angry thoughts, that will increase the likelihood that you'll get angry again and again and again. And each time you may lose your temper quicker, speedier. You react quicker, you're triggered easier, your buttons are pushed easier, and maybe the strength, the intensity of your angry state of mind may increase over time if you do nothing about it. The same with greed. Desire, greed for different sense objects will increase through repeated indulgence in greed. You could use the word indulgence. You indulge in greed, you indulge in anger, jealousy, fear, anxiety, all that what we call the mental defilements. Repeated indulgence in them, they get stronger, they grow, they get more powerful, they come up more easily. But in the similar way, if we cultivate the path, practice restraint, patience, mindfulness, wise reflection, we develop the qualities such as, say, hiri ottappa, shame, fear of wrongdoing, effort, energy, all the positive qualities, there's many of them. They also can come up more easily, more often. They can be reinforced too, to the point where they're well established. And the more negative qualities are few and far between and less nourished and come up less and less often. I'm describing it fairly simply, but that's how it works, isn't it? Your mind can change for the better or it can change for the worst. And how you treat your mind, how you practice, how you train it, what you think about, what you do, what you say matters, because it is karma and it keeps coming back to us, and it will affect your mental, your experience of life.
Sadhu Lumpo. Next question. Hi, Ajahn. How should I apply the concept of dukkha to the struggles of not being able to see my partner and the worry of not being able to conceive a baby due to the fact that my partner and I have to stay separated for the reasons out of our control?
Well, number one, be patient with the situation. Things can change, and if you're patient, maybe things will change without you having to try and control them or make them change. Maybe they'll change all by themselves, or just maybe conditions will change to the point where you can influence them more and you can bring things more under your control. So I assume you love this person, you want to be with them, but for conditions outside your control, maybe that's to do with work, could be, I don't know. I don't know the full story, but if your goal is to be with your partner, start a family with them, well, you have to work towards that goal patiently and in a skillful way. So try not to get too upset. If it's conditions out of your control, then you have to accept that fact. Oh, I can't control this. As I said, I don't really know the full story. So think it through. What can you affect? What can you change in this situation? What will you have to put up with because you can't change? That's a good starting point. Talk to your partner. See whether you can come to a mutual agreement and make a plan. What can we do to improve things? Because I don't know how well you're communicating, whether your partner feels the same as you do. There's various things here you have to work on and understand more. While you're being patient, while you're stuck in this situation, one thing we can do is make a determination, a resolution in our mind, which if you meditate regularly, you might already understand this, where you make a solemn resolution. You have a goal, maybe to live as a family together, to be together, and you make that goal clear in your mind, and you say, this is what I want to achieve at this time. May this come to be. And you make your resolution in one way or another, and you set your heart to achieve that. I might add a bit there. if you're going to start a family, maybe may it be a family that practices the Dhamma. I'm a monk. I have to add this bit in. So you want your family to practice the Dhamma, improve their Dhamma practice. So being together is a cause for greater happiness in the family, so that you can carry on and practice the Dhamma, learn the Dhamma, practice the Dhamma and improve that.
Sadhu Lumpur. Next question is, when my kids or siblings have problems, I try to solve them. Not always possible. Pain arises and stays. Lumpur, appreciate your advice on how I should handle this.
I will try to ground your mind in a lot of metta, loving kindness, compassion for yourself and your family members. It seems every family in the world goes through this in one way or another. It's the problem of living together in the world. And as a family, different opinions, different interests, different beliefs and views on things. So what lubricates all that, all these differences and conflicting views on things and ways of doing things, is goodwill. Put your effort into that, so the goodwill for yourself and then out to your siblings, so that you can be tolerant of them and their differences. And then just reflect, because when you're reflecting from a place of metta, goodwill, your wisdom tends to work better. So reflect, well, what can I do in this situation to improve understanding, to get good results and things in the decisions and the things that we have to do. If you really can't get a good understanding, or you're really thinking from different places, we'll try to see how can you be at peace and be tolerant of that. There's no point holding on to pain. So also look at, where does pain come from? Often it's you're not getting what you want, so you're in pain. You want someone to follow your way of doing things or your view, and they don't. Maybe they're unkind to us. There'll be reasons. Try and see if you can understand it more, what's going on, and where you can increase your kindness and compassion, and then you develop greater understanding to reduce the pain. But always come from a place of kindness, patience, and try and use your intelligence, your wisdom and understanding to get a better outcome.
Sadhu Lumpur. Next question is, how to establish mindfulness on daily basis?
Practice. Mindfulness always has an object. It's this paying attention to the present moment and what you're doing, and introducing the Dhamma as well. So mindfulness of precepts, mindfulness of a meditation object, mindfulness of speech, mindfulness of action, mindfulness of the Dhamma, maybe the Dhamma of impermanence. There's many things we are mindful of, but as you go through your day, you can practice mindfulness. So if you're doing a job of work, maybe you base your mindfulness practice around doing that job, paying attention, trying to do it successfully, well, complete the tasks you have to do. If you're in the family, well, look at what your duties and responsibilities are in the family, try to do that well. But as you're doing these things, also be aware of what's coming up in your mind, your state of mind, your speech, your actions, so that they're still lying within the realm of, precepts, morality. Try to practice mindfulness with right effort, so you're not increasing your unskillful, unwholesome states of mind. You are reducing them, and you're cultivating wholesome states of mind. So a bit of meditation here and there through the day often helps. Even 1 minute of breath meditation is better than nothing. If you're in the middle of a day, 1 minute, just breathe in, breathe out, re-establish mindfulness, carry on. That can be a lifesaver for some people. From time to time, going to the breath or any other meditation object. Listening to Dhamma from time to time, in your car or when you got a bit of free time, listening to some Dhamma to remind you of the way of practice and get some insights into how to practice. Spending time with people who practice mindfulness. So when you do get the chance, going to temples, monasteries, Buddhist groups, etc. There's a whole range of things we do that will help improve our overall level of mindfulness. And just go for it.
Sadhu Lumpo. Next question is, if I want to know the Vinaya, 227 precepts, more any recommendations from Ajahn to refer to any reliable website from the internet? I am intending to be a temporary bhikkhu for a couple of months.
Oh, well, there's a nice thick book, or set of books called The Buddhist Monastic Code by Ajahn Jeff Tenisaro. That's available online or bookshops. That's thick, but, if you've got a time, you can maybe just go read bits and pieces as you have time available. It's like a summary and explanation of the monk's Vinaya, the monk's discipline. There's the monk's discipline itself from the Buddhist Tripitaka. And then there's other commentaries, maybe look online, but you maybe start with the Buddhist monastic code. It's quite heavy going, but if you're really sincere in becoming a monk, even a temporary monk, you might find it quite interesting and maybe focus on those 227 rules. Just read them through once might be a good thing, just to get familiar with the sort of themes, and then you maybe go back and look in more detail if you have time. Perhaps that's a good place to start.
Sadhu Lumpo. Next question is, as a Buddhist, how would one prepare for death?
If you're following the Buddha, then you prepare for death every breath in, every breath out. You're mindful that it could be your last. Start there. But that's quite difficult because we forget. So at least once a day, we have these chants we recite. I am of the nature to die. I have not gone beyond dying. So either read or chant something that reminds you of the temporary nature of life. That's a good start. And then notice that also, you hear the news, somebody has died in your family, circle of friends, or just in the world. Always pause and say, this will happen to me too. So you're seeing the commonality of death. Everyone must die. So you get becoming familiar with the concept of death. Then you think, well, when I die, how do I want to be? I want to be at peace, I would have thought. Everyone wants to die peacefully. How will I achieve that? Well, by training my mind so I have more mindfulness, so I can let go of what is not peaceful from my mind. Regrets, anger, worries, fears. Cultivate practice. Develop mindfulness, develop sila. Sila keeps your mind free from regret. So if you have broken sila and hurt people in the past, clear it all up as quickly as you can. Forgive them, apologize to them, sort it out as quickly as you can, because you never know when they might die or you might die. And then live every day with this attitude of forgiving people, being tolerant of people, even people who hurt you. Don't hold on to a grudge. Let it go. And you may still have to do things to protect yourself, look after yourself, but don't hold on to grudges. Practice meditation every day. Develop a skill with a meditation object such as the breath, so that you know how to turn to the breath at any time, let go of things that are bothering your mind. So say you are approaching death, you can do that. Cultivate loving kindness regularly as an attitude. Recollect the Buddha, because you get a lot of strength of mind and it reminds you of the path of practice. So recollect the Buddha. All these things will help you to prepare for today, which one day it will be your last day. So just preparing for today, to lead today in a good way. Do what you have to do. Don't build up grudges. Don't hurt people. Practice letting go, contemplating impermanence. If you do that today and then you get up tomorrow and you do it again tomorrow, then little by little you're preparing for your death, aren't you?
Sadhu Lumpo. Next question is, dear Ajahn, this Zoom session it certainly helped me in many ways as a newcomer. I do see the emphasis and importance of practice of mindfulness via meditation. However, what is the necessity of reading other material, example, other sutras, in addition to this, and whether is that really necessary? If it is important, what would be the next books, etc., to read as a newcomer in addition to this as the next step?
Yeah, this is something that varies from person to person. You have to look at the results of your reading. If reading a lot inspires you, motivates you to practice, fine. Some people only read a little bit and that motivates them to practice. So you have to observe the results of your actions with this. And certainly I would explore a few of the sutras, maybe the main sutras, maybe start with the Majjhima Nikaya. Read a few sutras. Make yourself read a few sutras. If you've never read a sutta, make yourself, just to familiarize yourself with some of the concepts, the language of the Buddha. If it grabs you, if you find it helpful, continue. If it doesn't, well, just read a few and then put it aside for now. And then I would encourage you to do some meditation every day. And I would recommend reading Ajahn Chah talks, or listening to them online or reading them. You don't have to read a lot, just read a few pages here and there, maybe to start. But if you've got time, maybe read one whole talk. I've always found them very informative, easy to understand, and give great insight into the training of the human mind, how to deal with obstacles, what sort of things to expect, what results we might get from the practice, what obstacles we will encounter, how to overcome them, all kinds of good stuff. So Ajahn Chah's teachings are all available. His biography, his teachings are available. I would read some of that, read one or two suttas, just start there, but then also meditate as well and do the things, do it together. So the reading is supporting the practice. That's my understanding of how the Buddha taught. We listen or read the Dhamma, but it's for the practice. How much time you assign to this? Well, just see what your heart is saying, how inspiring you find it, how helpful you find it.
Sadhu Lumpo. Next question is, my parents have never respected my views. When I tell them I am hurt by their non-caring actions, they always call me self-centered. Now that my husband has passed away, they say it's my karma that I am now alone. As I come to know the Dharma, I realize I have a lot of anger because of the rejection and non-acceptance from my parents all my life. My mind will often conjure up conversations with them where I still wish to pin out their actions are totally against the Buddha teachings. Although the Dharma say children should respect their parents, this is not an entitlement and they should still show compassion for my situation. I have accepted that they don't care about me, but many keep telling me to go back to see them, making me feel guilty. To clarify, my brother and his family of 2 adult kids have been living with them, so it is not that they need my help. In fact, I think they had rather I live my own life till I die.
Well, I sympathize with your situation. It is very common in the world, say for Buddhists, to have family members who don't see eye to eye. Sometimes parents practice and the children don't, and sometimes the children practice and the parents don't. Could be siblings, sometimes partners. So you live with someone and they're not into Buddhism and Buddhist practice, but you are. This is just part of the practice, and we have to learn how to deal with it skillfully, be patient with it. But I sympathize with your situation. I think the Buddhist teachings would encourage you, where appropriate, where you feel you can, to show kindness to your parents in one way or another, communicating with them, visiting them. How much, how often, this is I don't know your life situation, but I wouldn't cut them off. I would still make the effort, because you're training yourself to rise above any bias, any anger. Like you say, you have anger. That's not going to help you if you hold on to that. If you hold on to a grudge against your parents, it will always be an obstacle to your spiritual progress. So if you really want to be free from suffering, even the suffering around your relationship with your parents, I would encourage you to make the effort to go against any anger or any grudge you have, and try to show kindness in whatever way you can towards your parents. Wish them well. Start with a meditation. Sit down and meditate and wish them well in your meditation. Bring it up as a theme first in your meditation, and then see where you can put it into practice with your speech, your actions. The actual details of this, we haven't got time to go into that here, but I would make that one of the goals in your spiritual practice, is to cultivate kindness, respect, love for your parents. Whatever they say and do, that's a totally different thing. That's them. And they have to look after their own lives, their own practice. This is for you to improve in your life so that your mind is free from anger. So if that's where the anger is, that's where you have to practice. And sometimes the best way to remove anger is, go right in there and be kind to the people you're angry with, and be tolerant of them and do things for them, even though part of your mind says, I don't want to get involved, I don't want to have anything to do. Don't necessarily follow that thought. Do the opposite. Go there, see them, meet them, be kind to them. Whatever their reaction, that's separate. That's their karma, that's their action. You're doing what you realize is good. And the Buddha said, do your best to help your parents materially, and then spiritually, if you can have them increase their faith in Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha in any small way, that will be good. If you can't, never mind, but you can try. That's all you can do.
That's all the questions that we have. And we will end the session by paying respects to the Triple Gem.